How's it going, everyone? Welcome back to Coffee Break. I'm your host, Hunter, as always. Got some fun stuff going on at Foundation. This is a weird time because over the next several weeks, there's a lot of stuff that I'm going to want to tell you about that I can't quite yet. And then once some of this news starts breaking, some of the stuff we got going on, then I can kind of do a more in-depth episode giving you a behind the scenes, walking you through that stuff. So it's going to be an exciting few weeks coming up. But right now we're in this little lull. And this is how the year kind of always starts, I think, we get really excited. We have a bunch of stuff we're planning, but like no one's really playing disc golf that much right now. A lot of like snow and ice and stuff like that. There's a lot of sponsorship movements going on, but like not a lot of like sales happening from those yet. So this is always these first few weeks of January, always just kind of start slow. It's a good time to just kind of sit back, refresh, start planning, start getting stuff rolling for the new year. And for us, we're already like knee deep in several projects that'll be rolling out over the next few weeks and months. So super excited about that. One announcement that you might have seen, this isn't one of the big four, so this isn't one of them yet, but we got 4 big announcements coming. But one that happened, I believe it happened last Thursday. Robbie C posted it where we locked him down for another 2 years with us. So we had a 2-year contract with him originally, and then we ended back in, we started negotiating, talking to him again in like November. Well, we were talking to him all year, started talking to him about the new deal in like November, and pretty much just kept the working relationship the same. Everything was working well. We were able to kind of learn and figure stuff out over these last 2 years that we're excited to carry on for 2 more with him. I know his big push is he wants to get to 100K subscribers during these next 2 years. He's at about 65 almost right now, so very reasonable goal. I think it's something we can get done there. So exciting thing that happened that went under the radar a little bit there is relocking him down for 2 more years with us, and hopefully much longer. He's become a really cool part of the Foundation team, and so yeah, we're excited for that. Another thing that you'll notice coming soon, later this week, I'll be publishing on the Foundation Labs channel, which is like our second channel, the top 25 best-selling discs of 2024. And alongside that, there will also be a top 100 best-selling discs blog going on our site. And a part of that blog is some more data. So you might find this interesting. I'm assuming if you're listening to this podcast, you probably will find it interesting. So I wanted to break down 2024, our top 100 discs. Obviously, you're going to have to read the blog to actually get what numbers, what came in. But basically what I did is I took all of the discs, then I sorted them by brand, then I took the brands and however many of those discs sold, added them together. And so out of the top 100 molds, this is the percentage of actual disc sales that each company made up, if that makes sense. So if for Discraft there was, we'll just make up numbers here. For Discraft, let's say there was 500 buzzes, 500 zones sold, and that was it in the top 100. Discraft would have 1,000 discs. And then if MVP had 500 discs and those were the only 2 companies, Discraft would make up 66%, MVP would make up 33%, if that makes sense. So that's how I did this chart. So I thought you might find it interesting, but Discraft led the way at 40% of the top 100 discs. Again, I explained how it works. Top 100 there. MVP came in second at 21.7%. Innova takes up third at 13.9%. This next one, some of y'all might find interesting. It really was basically just held by 2 discs all year long, which is Gateway at 5.4%. That's how strong the Robbie C Wizards, the Connor Wizards, and the Connor Shamans were for us. And then in addition to that, the Stock Wizard sells okay. It's nothing crazy, but it sells fine. The rest of Gateway is pretty negligible. It doesn't. None of them broke into the top 100, but what did break in the top 100 was the Connor Shaman and the Robbie C Wizard, so the Wizard as a whole. And that made up 5.4%. So crazy how much of that moved. Discmania came in next at 3.7%, Clash at 3.2%, Finish Line at 3.2%, pretty much all from one mold, which was the Trevor Staub Supra, as you'll see when the list releases. But the Trevor Staub Supra was a big hit. You'll notice kind of throughout this, and I'll talk about it in a second, a lot of this is heavily driven by personality brands. So That'll kind of explain some of our vision for 2025. Latitude 64 made up 2.6%. Prodigy made up 1.9%, Castaplast 1.3%, Mint Discs 1.2%, Trash Panda 0.8%, Hooligan 0.7%, Ocean Discs with the Sea Turtle 0.3%. So that's all the brands that cracked into the top 100, notably missing Dynamic Discs. I think that's pretty notable. Also Westside. I think both of those being missing is pretty notable because before Dynamic would have been kind of the heavy hitter in the U.S. for Trilogy. Instead, we see Latitude 64 being the best-selling Trilogy brand at 2.6%, but Discmania carrying House of Discs at 3.7%. So, anyways, like I was briefly talking about there, when this list released, what you'll notice is several of the personality stamp discs kind of lead the way. Not lead the way in terms of like the top 100, but they're able to break in there. You'll see some discs way higher than you probably would have expected. But that has really opened our eyes a little bit. Last year was the first year we really leaned into personality brands. We really leaned into the different podcast brands and doing stuff besides just Foundation Disc Golf stamp stuff. We started doing like the Trevor Supra, like the Trevor Stop Cash, like the Connor Shaman, the Connor Big Fish Wizard, the Hunter Bird, all of that fun stuff, more Robbie C stamp stuff. So like we started doing that a little bit more in 2024 and people really were excited about it. So 2025, we're going to do more of it. We're not going to milk it for all it's worth because I think that's how you end up in a spot similar to like you see with Ledgestone where they just have so many runs going all the time it gets hard to keep up with. We're not going to be doing that, but we are going to lean more heavily into the personality stamped stuff and also more personality apparel and accessories because we just saw that trend increase last year. So we understand that that's where we can take advantage of being a media company and a retailer is we have personalities that people enjoy watching. That's why they watch the channel as much as they do. And so we can take those and turn them into products. People are really going to enjoy those, and they're just fun. Like the Connor Shaman's just a good time. It's a great flying disc, and it looks fun. Same with the Trevor Cash, the Trevor Stop Supra, yada, yada, yada. So that's definitely something for 2025 that we're taking into account and that we're going to do a little bit more of. People are asking when the Hunter Bird will be restocked, the Trevor Cash. All that's coming soon. The Hunter Bird and the Connor Shaman, we're actually going to redo the Connor Shaman. It's going to be a 2025 stamp. So a new stamp on the Connor Shaman, the Hunter Bird rerun. That stuff will actually should restock in January. So that's super exciting. One thing that's coming up really quick is this Friday, we're going to be doing our charity sales-a-thon. We normally did it in December, but we had some sicknesses and stuff happen in December, so we just pushed it into January. So we'll be a portion of all sales, as well as 100% of the Super Chat revenue will be going straight to charity. And so we're super excited about that. There's going to be we're going to reveal the 2024 Foundation Disc of the Year. That's not the best-selling disc, but that's the disc that we feel had the most impact on Foundation and Foundation content. So the 2024 Disc of the Year will be announced, and we have a custom stamp that's being released alongside that. So that's going to happen during the charity event. There's going to be a bunch of different sales. There's going to be punishment wheels where once we hit certain thresholds, we'll be spinning the wheels, all kinds of fun stuff. So that's going down Friday at 5 p.m. Eastern time. So make sure you tune into that. We're super excited to be bringing that back again. Like I said, we normally did that in December, but we decided to do it in January this year. So got pushed back to here. And then as far as new discs on the site, I think we're getting the Mint Disc Salamander in this week. And we have some cool text deals going out. Do I have the text deal thing? I don't think I have it up anymore. I used to have a little thing that could pop up. But the text deal, I'll put the number in the description down below, and you just text, the word join to that number, and you get a text deal sent to you every week. So that's really fun because we do, I think Brad actually just texted me if you heard that like ding. I think this week we're going with, we have some slight blemished Apex Swirl Phoenixes. So I think it looks like we're going to be selling those for $12 plus shipping. They typically retail for $18. So that's just an idea of the type of deals that go down on our text deals. So if you want to be a part of that list, you can join a few thousand other people. Get in on that. It's always a good time to go out every Tuesday to our Patreon members, every Wednesday to the general public. If you are a Patreon member, you have to join through Patreon, not through here. So, yeah, it's a good time. Like I said, slow week this week, slow week next week. Then the week after, announcement 1 of 4 is going to happen. Maybe announcement 1 and 2 of 4. Sometime early February, announcement 3 of 4. Sometime late February, 4 of 4. So the first quarter, we're going to get 4 bangers out of the way real quick. Super excited about all of that. One project in particular I've been working on since October, I think, putting a lot of hours in. So super excited about that, but super excited about all of them. I think that you guys are going to absolutely love the stuff that's coming your way, and I'm excited to break it down on Coffee Break once we announce it, all of that. So really fun times ahead for Foundation. Let's go ahead and just jump into the questions here on Instagram. If you don't follow me on Instagram, you can check it out. I believe, what is my username? Hunter Thomas _FDG, and I post pretty much every Monday saying like, hey, any questions for the coffee break tomorrow? And I have a bunch of them today, so we're just going to kind of churn through these. Seth Peterson said, will the editors or other staff, Jason/Brad, ever get a break series? So we did the like break with Connor that wasn't necessarily a series. It was more just like a challenge, and once he broke it, and that's what actually inspired the break series that Trevor and I have done. Because what those were with Connor was he didn't know when it was coming. We would just kind of randomly go out to the course and do it. Once break 68 is over, whether I break it or next month the course gets pulled, so I got like 2 or 3 more attempts in me. Once that's over, we'll definitely be looking for another break series. Whether that's Connor, Silas, Trevor does another one, I don't know what that looks like yet, but there will be more break series coming once break 68's over. We don't know what it's going to look like, though. J. Kedzi Jobora said, new putters for 2025. If you don't know, I am using the worst selling putter from the previous month for the next month. So basically a putter has to have at least sold one, but all the ones that are tied at like one sold that previous month, I'm going to pick from that and use it for the next month. So this month I'm using the Gateway Voodoo. I've actually really enjoyed it so far. It has a very small bead, but has a ton of glide on it. It's a really true putter. I'm using it in the, I have one that's a pure white and one that's like a super soft glow or super glow, something like that. I like the glow one a little bit more. The pure white's a little too stiff for me, especially in these colder temperatures, but I've been really enjoying it. So Mountain Temple said, is pro disc golf culture too focused on growing the sport and not enough on strengthening it? That's an interesting question. I don't think it's necessarily pro disc golf culture. I think it's manufacturers and the Pro Tour and stuff. And I'm going to say I can see that. It's a weird one because you have to grow the sport, right? Especially if we want more money in the pots, if we want players to be able to get paid more, all of that. There just has to be more eyeballs on the sport. There has to be more people buying discs. And the second the sport isn't introducing new players to the sport's dying because people will fall out of the sport. Life happens. You know, maybe you picked up the hobby because you were injured and couldn't do something else you love to do, and then you're not injured anymore. You go back to doing that and you forget about disc golf, whatever. So players will stop playing disc golf. So if we don't introduce players at least that equal rate, so if we don't grow the sport at the same rate the sport slows, then the sport will just slowly die. So growing the sport is crucial. Strengthening the sport is also crucial, but I think a lot of that is just it relies on how companies run themselves. And so you see like the Dynamic Discs director of operations did like a Q&A, and the ex-director of operations, and he was saying that one of the mistakes that was made was basically a bunch of new money came in during COVID. It was spent on stuff that didn't actually help the business. It was spent on, a new facility, making it look as good as possible. It was sent on signing pros to massive contracts, yada, 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 that ended up not panning out as well as they hoped. And so now they're in a tougher spot because they misused funds. I think that is true of a lot of stuff. Actually, I keep forgetting to talk about this book, The Infinite Game, but this covers a lot of what disc golf's going through during COVID or went through, because essentially the whole premise of it, Simon Sinek's awesome. I've read Start With Why and Leaders Eat Last, and then this was the other book that was recommended to me from him. But he has a really good perspective on business in general and leadership. And what this book basically talks about is it looks at a bunch of businesses, and the second businesses get caught on the bottom line, the second they get caught on profit at all costs, that's what matters. And they're not thinking about trying to build a company that is around for your kids and your kids' kids and your kids' kids' kids. Then they start to do kind of what it sounds like Dynamic did when House of Discs bought them, where they start to see things as just data points and not people, and they start to make decisions that only benefits the company, even if it's at the harm or not the best interest of the customer base or the people that are part of the company, and therefore end up in the long term sacrificing potential profits, sacrificing potential revenue because they were so focused on the short term. And so he calls that the finite game, is being worried about tomorrow's books instead of being worried about keeping the doors open 50 years from now, versus the infinite game, which is how he gives a compelling argument that business should be done, is basically if you take care of the people running the business, you take care of the customer base, the rest is going to solve itself. Now, does that mean you're going to get rich and that money's going to be flying in? You're never going to have to stress about money, but it means that when those times do come, people will go to bat for you, which I think is very important because, like, in general, you want to treat people the way you want to be treated, whether it's a customer, whether it's an employee, whether it's whatever. And the second you ignore that for the sake of money, people can feel it. Even if you think you're being sly or whatever, you can feel it from the outside looking in, or if you're inside the company. And then what happens is all these intangible things start to slip, right? Because then you're so focused on this that you don't realize that your customer service rep was such a good customer service rep because they genuinely loved your business. And they were willing to go to bat for your business time and time again because of how much they loved their job. And all of a sudden, they don't have that passion anymore. Now your customer experience is going to go down the crapper. And now all of a sudden, you're going to come after your customer experience person, being like, what's going on and whatever, and try to fix the, put a Band-Aid on it instead of actually getting to the root of the problem. So the infinite game actually tackles a lot of what kind of happened during COVID, I think, where people got caught up in money flowing in. How can we capitalize on that and make as much money as possible in the shortest time possible? And in doing so, shot themselves in the foot. And now they're kind of seeing that repercussion 5 years later. And who can survive that storm? Time will tell. I don't know, but that was a great book. Shout out to Jesse, the owner of Trash Panda, for recommending it to me. And he actually, not only did he recommend it, he posted it on LinkedIn, and I was like, dude, is that actually a good book? And he's like, it's so good, I'll send it to you. And I was like, don't worry about that. Like, you ain't got to send it to me. I'll buy it after I'm done with my next book. And like 2 days later, it was on my doorstep. He just bought it on Amazon, shipped it to our retail office, and there it was. So shout out Jesse. Awesome book. It was a great time. So C-Dub Wage BMX said, how long before you started getting big distance? Well, I've been playing since 2015, so we're 9 years in, and I would not say I have big distance yet, so 9 years. I would assume you're probably asking, like, how long till I started hitting, like, 400 feet or so, because I can throw, like, 420 now. And I will say there's a few different barriers that I feel like most people hit when it comes to distance. Barrier one is just trying to break 300 feet. And a lot of trying to break 300 feet comes down to improper form and nose angle. So a lot of times you're rounding, you're not getting much brace on, you're not transferring power into the disc, and it's coming out really nose up, and it's getting out there stalling and then falling backwards. That's what happens a lot of times for 300 feet. So what you'll discover is breaking 300 feet, you can give some more general answers. They're going to be true for like 95% of people of why you can't break 300 feet. The next wall people hit is that 350 mark. You break 300, you can throw 300 or 325. 350 is just a wall. That a lot of times comes down to footwork and timing more than anything. And so that 350 wall a lot of times is the brace. It is when you go to throw, you get your body ahead of your lower body, your timing gets jacked up, and you're arming the disc out there a lot more than getting that transfer of power from the lower body. And the brace isn't there nearly as much. Because the brace is very important because it stops all momentum and transfers where the only thing that goes forward is the disc. And that allows everything you've built up to transfer into the disc. And that's what kind of breaks that 350. That and disc selection is really huge for 350. Then the 400-foot wall is where it gets harder, and you almost have to talk to someone and let them watch what you're doing, because then it's any number of things. for me, I wasn't a very efficient. So I remember I was probably throwing like 390. I probably was pretty close to 400, but I had my left arm just went up, and when I'd go through, I'd kind of like did this whole thing. And what was happening is I wasn't tight on my rotation, so I was losing a lot of speed there. So my lower body, my timing was actually probably better than it is today, but I couldn't throw very far because since it was up there, I basically turned very slow, and then I'd come through, and it was a lot because of what was going on my left side of my body. So what fixed me, and this is where things get confusing, is because what fixed me is something that is nowadays taught to not do. And I understand the logic behind why you don't want to do this, but it's a hard thing to blanket teach because where it is something that one person shouldn't do because it's going to break them is something that, if you're in my case, fixed me. So what fixed me is when I reached back, I would punch my left hand and go towards my right pocket. That's what I'd reach for, was reach for my right pocket. And that helped get my arm down, which helped my upper body be able to rotate fast enough to effectively transfer the power and everything to throw. And then that is what got me over 400 and throwing as far as I do today, which is like 420. So not that much farther. So I still don't have big distance. And now like that 450 mark is a whole different barrier. But basically you can watch YouTube tutorials, in my opinion, and get to 350. 350 to 400 is a lot of personal issues. So it's a lot of you're doing something that needs to be like looked at by someone locally or whatever to help you get to 400. And then some of it you are just going to blindly find and be able to work through. But a lot of times the people who are stuck at that 375 mark keep watching YouTube videos and trying more stuff and just break their form more than they help it, because there's not as much blanket stuff of like, if you do this, you will throw 300 feet. There's not a, if you do this, you will throw 400 feet, because it gets a lot more different. And there's especially not 450, 500, yada, yada, yada. Al Custom said, what course is next on your bucket list, personal or for the channel? I honestly have no idea. We've gotten to play so many awesome disc golf courses. Maple Hill was the big one. And past that, I'm a real sucker for scenery. So I really liked playing in like Utah and stuff, where in Iowa even, or was it Idaho? I don't remember. I think it was Idaho. I get them both confused. Where there was like giant mountains and stuff. I'm a real sucker for that. So anything out there is a good time. Thunderbird Gardens, for instance, was like incredible. It was fine course design, but you were just playing in just the most unreal location. Okay, we're gonna go up a little bit more here. We'll get these two. Up Down Disc Golf said, "What's the biggest lesson you learned from a year with the Banger GT?" I think it's I just suck at putting in general, so I don't think it really matters what putter's with you. I do think that there's I think I went to a spin putt for a little bit, and it fixed a lot of the problems I was having. And what I discovered is like, to be an effective putter at the like spush putt, which is when I'm at my best, you do have to practice that. You have to at least get reps up regularly with it. Or the alternative fix I found is, because a lot of times for me, my miss when I'm spush putting is low into the cage. So if I have a putter with a little more glide, which is like what the Voodoo's providing, then it makes it a little bit easier to have that putt. But the problem is when I am popping it well, that leads to a big comebacker. So I don't want to go all the way to like a Roach or something like that, because that has too much glide for me. A lot of it's mental. But when I have a beadless putter like a Roach, like an AVR, where I have the mental side of like, this thing just goes far, then I end up just throwing putts farther. So I think with the Banger, I did find like it just has no glide. It's a brick, and there's some benefits to that. There's also some downsides. The spin putt was fun, and it's good to know I have it in me when I need it for windy situations and stuff, but I didn't ever get consistent enough with it to actually like it. Tricky has two questions. One, where is Isaac signing? Two, any news on Brody for the next season? I don't know what Brody's said publicly or not said publicly, but as far as I'm aware, he is going to be touring next season to at least some extent. What that looks like, I don't fully know. I know he's going to try to get out to at least most of the big events. And there's not that many Pro Tour events realistically, so I'd imagine he'll play a mostly full tour, but I'm sure he'll have an announcement explaining exactly what his goals are for that and all that soon. I also think he's planning on bringing content back, which will be exciting. So, and then where is Isaac signing? A lot of rumors about Latitude 64. Don't love it, don't hate it. I don't know. It's kind of hard to think of anywhere else just because there are so many rumors about that. So we will see if that's where he actually ends up. But it's sounding like Latitude 64. I would imagine that announcement's going to come in the next 2 to 3 days. Probably by the end of this week, we'll know. I don't really see them dragging it out much longer, but who knows? Whoever it is has us on the edge of our seats. That's for sure. Okay, let's look through. Just Zach DG said, do you think disc golf will ever get over the hump of business growing pains? I think a lot of times people like to lump disc golf in all together as one. When it's the issues some companies experience aren't the issues other companies experience. You have a company like Discraft that, from the outside looking in, is thriving. They're doing completely fine. I don't know their financials or anything like that, but they move a lot of plastic. From what I understand, they didn't go crazy during COVID. I think the only thing they did during COVID was lock Paul in for longer, but especially during those early days, the PM line was flying off the shelf. And I know during their announcement video with him, they talked about buying more machines and stuff. And that type of investment makes a lot of sense for me. And so you have companies like that where Discraft, Innova, they seem like they're weathering the storm. They seem like they're not struggling. Then you have companies like Dynamic where it does seem like they're struggling in house discs in general. And then obviously Prodigy. But if you look at what is causing, what's the difference, Prodigy, it all started with really the Gannon-Burr lawsuit. That's kind of what spiraled this whole thing off. And so now people have very strong opinions of Prodigy. And so Prodigy has business growing pains they have to go through. House of Discs does as well. I think House of Discs got too corporate too quick. So I think that it's a weird one where when companies try to grow beyond where they currently are at is when they get into trouble. And companies who are just that slow growth, churn it out. When something big happens like COVID, take advantage as much as we can, but we're wise enough to know this isn't going to happen and stay forever. Those are the companies that today we aren't hearing crazy stuff about, and it seems like they're completely fine. So I do think they'll get over the business growing pains, but I do think it also, because a few companies are struggling and hurting, it makes it feel like the entire sport is, when I don't believe that to be true. I think it's a few certain companies, and they're pretty big companies. I think those are the companies that are hurting, and the sport is smaller than it was in 2022 or 2021, 2022. But that's just by nature. We had a COVID spike, and now it's leveled out, and now we're just growing at a normal rate again. So I think everyone will get over the hump, and who's still standing on the other side, I don't know. EAH says, other than the Hunterbird, is there a personality disc you enjoy? So I'm assuming these are the personality discs as in the ones we've ran. The only other one that's in my bag right now is the Connor Shaman, and that fits my game really well. I really enjoy the Shaman. It's basically like a seasoned PA4 is kind of how it flies for me. It has an easy flip right out the box. I think I would like the Cash, but my bag, I don't have a lot of room for putters in general, and so I have to be very particular, and it's a little bit more overstable than I typically throw in that slot. So that's why that one's not in there. And then what's our other personality discs? The Supra, only reason it's not in there is because it fits the same slot as my Fuse, pretty much. And my Fuse is dyed with my first marathon on it, and that thing's just not coming out. Beyond that, the Robbie C. Wizard, I'm not a Wizard guy. That's also why the Big Fish, I'm not a Wizard guy. Just I never have agreed with the Wizard. I think that's all the personality discs. So the only other one that's in the bag is the Shaman. Also, EAH asked, do I have a stretching routine to prep for my marathons? No, I wish I did. I probably should. I stretch before every run. I get a good 5-10 minute stretch in before every run. And when I get really tight, I'll just like look on YouTube, like beginner yoga routine, and I'll just follow that. It's normally like I'll find one that's like 10 to 15 minutes long, and I'll just do that whenever I'm like tight. So a lot of times on recovery days, that's what I'll do, is just do some yoga here and there, because that really helps loosen things up. And I also roll out. I'll have a foam roller. I roll out when I'm tight, and do stuff like that. I also have like one of those Theraguns that I'll like use a massage gun on especially on my hamstrings and quads. Those get tight quick, so I'll use it on all of that. But nothing like super intense stretching wise. I should be better. Okay, a lot of questions I'm not going to get to. Unfortunately, I'm literally like halfway into them, so I'm gonna just kind of scroll up a little bit. I get asked this a lot. What do I got to do to get a Shark Hunter disc? The Shark Hunter is not going to come back to retail. It might end up in a subscription box at some point. But I do have plans for a different type of blank Hunter on an MD3. So stay tuned for that. I'm excited for that. S. Burke, will you guys ever post instructional backhand/forehand videos again? Yes. That's all I'm going to say on that topic. Hunterbird restock. A lot of people asking about that. Hunterbird are coming soon, like I said, by the end of this month. Can I give any sneak peek of a new custom stamp coming out? Let me see. Let me see if I can do a little sneakity peekity of something. I got to be very careful here. So let me see if I can find a way. I might not be able to do this without revealing too much. Okay. It's all Michelle. Very fun stamp, though. Very fun stamp. Really excited about it. But that's all Michelle. That's all Michelle about it. Okay. We'll go like 3 more questions. Kiefer_DG said, with the downward trajectory of disc golf, money-wise, where do you see the most light/growth areas? I think, first off, I think that, again, I talked about this so many times, I think that it sounds a lot worse than it is because, again, companies who are in trouble, a lot of them just overbet. That's not me saying that the sport isn't slowing down or hasn't slowed down since COVID. It for sure has. That's how we got, tournaments aren't filling as much, but there's also way more tournaments to play. Discs aren't selling as fast for a lot of companies, but for other companies, they're selling way faster. Like MVP, go back 2 years ago, pre-Simon, their market share was nowhere close to where it is. So how much is what we're experiencing, the sport slowing, that is definitely a part of it, versus attention shifting, which is also a big part of it. So I think the most light/growth areas is when people's backs are up against the wall, they have 2 options. They can close the doors, or they can put their hands on the plow and get moving. And when that happens, I think a lot of the best ideas come from that. They come from an area. I mean, if you look at Foundation, 2022, things obviously slowed up. It slowed up for everyone. What came out of that? Well, now the subscription boxes that people absolutely love, that was birthed in 2022. We now have our app. We do stuff on Whatnot. We have our text deals that go out regularly. Our email marketing has gotten a lot more streamlined, and a lot more stuff has become customer-centric, customer-focused, because we are now able to deliver what people want multiple different ways so that it scratches the itch for each person depending on what way you like to shop. We're able to hit you a lot of different ways. A lot of that stuff would have never happened if 2022 didn't happen. That's the same for a lot of the way pros contracts are structured, a lot of the ways whatever. If the tough times don't happen, the best ideas don't happen. So I think that the most light is there's a lot of people being innovative and pushing the sport forward now out of necessity that probably would have never had the same fire under them had the sport not slowed after COVID. If the COVID boom would have continued, then we'd be in a completely different space, whereas now people have to get creative and find ways to grow the sport, find ways to push the sport, find ways to keep it exciting, and that is going to just create a better sport in general. That's how I look at it, at least. So you can be doom or gloom, or you can join me on the bright side. Let's see. Like I said, a few more questions. Okay, I think I'm at the top here. John Geyser said, what's your relationship with Paul like personally since he left Foundation? So immediately after he left Foundation, we were still tight. He lived in Lynchburg for another few years. And And so when he was here, in the off season, it was we were still hang out from time to time. He went to the same church as me. His in-laws still go to the same church as me. But it's more since he moved to Florida, we just don't see each other that much. Because I'll see him when we go out on the road, we'll bump into each other. And then, distance, you obviously now you just don't talk as much, whatever. So we'll see him from time to time. They'll come up for like Thanksgiving and stuff, and I'll bump into him at church, or he'll stop by the shop to say what's up or whatever. So, that's kind of where things are at. It's more the distance to Florida than anything, but time goes on, stuff, it just happens, is what it is. Austin Damon said, will I ever coach Liberty's disc golf team? I don't think so. I've seen the time commitment, and I don't think I want to make that time commitment. All right, final question. Who's winning Worlds in 2025? It's going to be over in Europe at the European Open courses, so I am going with Gannon Buhr. He just won European Open this past year, fairly certain. I think he's built for those courses. I don't see him slowing down. I don't see him getting worse in this upcoming year. So I think Gannon Buhr will win it. Dark horse pick, Paul McBeth. Always love Paul in Europe. It'd be crazy, but if it happens, you heard it here. But number one pick, Gannon Buhr. I think it'd be kind of silly not to take him. So don't forget, charity stream Friday, 5 p.m. Eastern time on the main channel. Also, if you're a Heiser Club member, don't forget to sign up for annual during the month of January. Or if you're not a Heiser Club member, this is the perfect time to join. If you join annually on the $5 tier, you get the annual disc in addition to a year-long's subscription to everything we do for the Heiser Club, bunch of behind-the-scenes content, the mailbag, all of that. If you join on the $10 or $20 tier, you get the annual disc plus an invitation to the Heiser Club Championship. You have to join in the month of January. If you've joined leading up to the month of January, you're grandfathered in, but you have to join in the month of January by the end of the month of January to get that invite. You get the annual disc, you get the invite to the Heiser Club Championship, you get the mailbag, you get a discount on the $10 and $20 tier to foundationdisc.com, you get access to the Heiser Club store, whole 9 yards, bunch of fun stuff all year long. So check out patreon.com/foundationdiscgolf to learn more about that, and I will talk to you again next week.